So I had polio when I was around 4.
So 1949.
Yeah.
So the first vaccine was given in 1955. You missed it by about 6 years.
Yeah. So I'm here to tell you that that's what happens when you're not vaccinated.
Describe the emotion that you're feeling when you're talking to me about this right now.
Well, the emotion is that, I'm a product of the pre-polio vaccine. So now I've done pretty well with my life. But why, why fool around with that? There's a saying, if it's not broken, why fix it, right? So I'm a perfect example of somebody that has spent all of his life to basically adjust to my disability. I have to think all the time as to what is accessible. I just went right now to a place I had to take some photos, and there was a step that high, and I couldn't get in. So they said, "Oh, we can do it," and so they bring a very short ramp to put on the stair when I had to go with my scooter, and I was almost killed, because the amount of angle and so on. I have to think about that all the time. When I travel to play my concerts, I have to think about what kind of room would be okay for me. So usually what I do is I always ask for photographs of the bathroom, of the height of the bed, and so on and so forth. This is a life for somebody who cannot walk. Now, I've adjusted. I'm a very happy person. I've adjusted.
You've learned to deal with all these obstacles.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
You're Itzhak Perlman,
Yeah.
but even you have to deal with all
those
the
difficulties.
difficulties.
And about the axis, the interpretation of axis varies. People think that, a lot of the architects, when they design these, so to speak, ADA rooms, they look at a code book. And the code said you have to put some grab bars. So they put the grab bars and it's accessible. It's not. Right now, some hotels I go into, and it's amazing. The toilet seat is like 2 feet from the ground, and the bed is 9 feet from the ground. So to go to the toilet to ballet, and then you have to go out, and then you have to climb onto the bed. They don't think that, with somebody in a wheelchair, for example, I have a scooter where I actually have a hydraulic system so I can go up a little bit. But if you're sitting in a wheelchair and you have a bed that is like, I don't know, 4 feet high or whatever it is, it's impossible. So to interpret what is accessible and what's is by itself an art, and I don't think that designers really know. For example, also, if you sit in a walk-in shower, they usually give you a seat there, yes, but sometimes they put the faucet immediately across so you can't reach the faucet. Who has thought about something like that? It's quite incredible. That's what I have to deal with.
So when you think about potentially somebody in the future getting paralyzed from polio because they didn't get vaccinated, and having to go through all of the difficulties that you've had to manage.
Yeah. Well, why? I mean, why do that? My parents were upset. They were so upset. They were, there you go, your child, that running and having a wonderful time and so on, and all of a sudden, stop.
Where were you at the time?
Israel.
In Tel Aviv?
Yes.
Do you remember a moment where you finally said to yourself, I'm not going to walk again?
No, I didn't say that. I mean, what I said was, when am I going to start playing the violin?
Oh. So had you already been playing violin before you got sick?
Yes, I did, and then it stopped. We stopped because I didn't like the way it sounded, because I couldn't play it.
Because you were 4 years old.
Exactly. No, at that time I was three and a half. I didn't like the way it sounded. But after I had polio, then my parents thought that it might be good for me to start again, and I thought so too. For whatever reasons, maybe they thought that it would be nice because I can't work, that I should occupy myself with something else. Although I was just very, very, very much incredibly, I wanted the sound. I loved the sound of the violin. So I was affected by the sound, and I wanted to do that. So between the visits to the orthopedics, the people with the leg casts and all of that stuff, I had a teacher come to the house, and I started to play.
In an odd way, you getting polio was part of the formula that led to you.
Well, I don't know. People ask me, if you didn't get polio, would you still play the violin? And I think probably yes.
You still would have played the violin?
Oh, I think so. I personally don't feel that one is connected to the other. Now, I would have done other stuff. I would have done sports or something like that. Of course, my parents would never let me. For example, we had in the class in Israel, we had one of the classes was called carpentry or something like that. I was not allowed to do carpentry because I might cut myself, I might hit myself in the hammer or whatever it is, and that would interfere with the violin. I had to practice. I had a lot of friends when I was living in Tel Aviv, and they thought that I was weird. Not because that I was on crutches. It's because I practiced 3 hours a day. That's what they thought was very unusual. Not that, because I was actually, at that time, the streets were not parked so much, so they were playing from one side of the street to the other, playing soccer. And I was goalie because I had my crutches and my feet. So every time a ball would come, I could stop it with that. That was fun.
There's footage of you on the Ed Sullivan Show when you are quite young.
Right, 13.
And tell me what that was like.
Well, first of all, I never heard of the guy. In Israel they mentioned Sullivan. No, actually in Israel they said Sullivan. So Sullivan, it's fantastic, wonderful, great, fantastic. One thing I got in the translation of Sullivan is that it meant a trip to the United States, which is it was so exciting, in a small country, after a while, you always need to go abroad. And there's a word called hishtalmut. That means to basically complete yourself, hishtalmut. So it was either Europe or the States. And so Sullivan was the opportunity to go to the States, to go to America, and to go to the Juilliard School, which we are here, and so on.
Now at 80, have you completed yourself?
Never.
Are you completing yourself?
Never complete yourself. If you complete yourself, then there's nothing left. There's always something. And the thing about people, when people ask me, what do you feel you have to do? What's your goal? What's your challenge still? And my challenge is never to continue not to be bored by what I do.
So at 80, you have still not completed yourself, right?
I don't think so. I think I'm continuing to be fascinated by music, which is something that's, for me, is a blessing. Because it's very easy when you play something. I mean, this a couple of hours ago, I had a rehearsal. I played a Mozart sonata, and I was still saying, fantastic piece. I played that Mozart sonata many, many, many times, and it's not like, oh yeah, there's the way I have to play another Mozart sonata. No, it's an amazing piece. What a phenomenal composer he was. So for me, that's a blessing, and that's a challenge, and that's a goal, to continue to be fascinated by what I do for a living.
I know it's not what we're talking about, but I have to ask you because I'm so interested. There's a whole literature on music and the brain and how it affects the brain. Even people with dementia suddenly can sit up and sing a song.
Yes.
Do you have any kind of gestalt about what's going on there with music and the brain? Why does a minor key make you tear up?
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. It's quite, or why does a phrase give you goosebumps? And my fascination, my question is, does a phrase, if you play that phrase for, let's say, 10 people, will it give everybody goosebumps, or would they need a different phrase to give them goosebumps?
So not so bad to be in a profession and have a life where at 80, what you are doing and what you are hearing can still give you goosebumps.
Absolutely.
It can still make you tear up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the way, we have, my wife told me, started this wonderful school called the Perlman Music Program. And every year we have a period of time where we have to choose kids to come, because sometimes we have opening. It's a small program. But so this year, for example, we had opening for 3 violinists out of 100 applicants.
Wow.
So, and out of the 100 applicants, there were at least 60 that were phenomenal. So how do you choose? And sometimes what we do is we say, if I hear somebody that says to you, oh my God, that's really something that moves you, that's how we choose, because the level of playing these days is very high. Everybody can play fantastically. So that little something that somebody does,
you can't even put your thumb on it. But you just know it's there.
That little something there that puts you to a different area in your brain. And that's something that the brain does, and that's inexplicable. And it's nice to have something you can't explain, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very nice. It's the same thing. Another example is like if you take 4 conductors standing on the podium, all very, very good. And every time somebody gives a downbeat, you'll get a different sound from the orchestra just on the chord. What is it? I mean, is it, where it's some sort of a current, electrical current that goes between your hand and what the player sees? I can't explain it. Have you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Moshe Feldenkrais?
I did not.
Feldenkrais, he was very famous in Israel, and a lot of people here, and he was talking about the brain. And he was saying how you can do stuff with your brain without actually doing it, that you can actually do that. And these days, sometimes, when I want to practice a particular phrase, I actually imagine it as to where the notes are going and so on. But you see, I didn't like to practice. And my parents were not musicians, but for example, my mother would always make sure that I practiced. So if I didn't practice, she would complain, "You're not practicing." So after seeing this doctor, and he said to me, he says, you can actually practice with your brain. And I said, really? He said, yes, really. So whenever she didn't hear me practicing, I said, I'm doing the Feldenkrais method. And she didn't buy it. And so, but it's really true that you could do a lot of stuff without actually doing this, because a lot of the stuff is, what goes next, as far as the technical passages and so on. You can do a lot of it with your brain. Sometimes the kids come to me and they say, I'm practicing a lot, but then when I get nervous, I think about what comes next. And that's there's a phrase, and all of a sudden you think, all right, what's next? And so I say to them, trust your practicing, because a lot of the stuff about practicing is repetition.
Muscle memory.
Yeah, and if you trust your repetition stuff, you're not going to have any problem. As a matter of fact, I said to them, look out the window and see the traffic, and then just play it. And you can always play it. You were talking about memory slips. You can always play it if you don't pay any attention, because the brain has told you that with over and over, repeated over again, it's right there. But if you start thinking about it, that's when you get into trouble. So, oh my God, what's next? But if you don't think about it, boom, right there. Brain is fascinating. I say to the kids, when you practice slowly, you will forget slowly. In other words, when you practice slowly, it'll stay with you. It's like a sponge. If you put a sponge in water and you take it right out, there's not that much water there, you know. It's a little water, but if you put it in water and it stays in water and it soaks the water, then you take it out, it's full of water. The same thing with the brain. If we practice slowly.
What do you mean by slowly? Like literally playing the notes slower than it's written?
Yes. Especially passages. And playing it, sometimes you play it in rhythm. Rhythms is very, very good, you know, dotted rhythms to do it. So you do one dotted rhythm and then you do the opposite dotted rhythm. And that really is helpful. It's absolutely fantastic. It's like aspirin for the hand. It really works.
If your parents were alive right now and they saw what's going on with the vaccine hesitancy and people saying, well, maybe don't take the polio vaccine, what do you think they would say?
They would be incensed. They would be, because, you know, they were so deeply, deeply upset with what happened to me. Deeply upset. And the thing about it is, though, what made them such good parents is that they never, when it came to my music, they never say, oh, well, yeah, it's all right, you know, whatever. I had to do the maximum. I had to do the best. They never, you know, and they were always like that, you know, and they believed in me. They believed in me. They never said, oh, well, it's very, very nice, the music, but it's very nice, but, you know, he has polio and he can't. They believed in me, and they believed in what I could do musically. They really did. So I give a lot of credit to what they did for me. A lot of credit. I forgot the original question that you just asked me.
What would they have said if they had seen everything that's going on right now with people saying, well, maybe don't take the polio vaccine?
Yeah, no, they would be shocked. They would be incensed.
So they were huge for you
they really believed in me. They did everything. You know, we went to the States. That was very difficult for them, and so on and so forth. But my child is going to the Juilliard School, and there it is. He's going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. It was very exciting.
How do you want to be remembered?
That I did the best I could as a musician, and as just as a human being, that I did the best I could, that was good enough.